called by God to do something that you felt unprepared for? Well, then you might relate to the story of Gideon. I will now read the passage, Judges 6, verses 1 through 20, and then 36 through 40. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hand of the Midianites. Because the power of the Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, and the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped out on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza, and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep, nor cattle, nor donkey. They came upon with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian was so impoverished, the Israelites, that they cried out to God for help. When the Israelites called out to God because of the Midian, he sent a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hands of the Egyptians. I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave them into your hand. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship other gods of the Amorites in whose land you live." But you did not listen to me. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that had belonged to Joseph the Elborite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but if the Lord is with us, why has it all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hands of the Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, Go in the strength you have, and save Israel out of Midian, the hands of Midian. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my lord," Gideon replied, "but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Mizpah, and I am the least of my family." The Lord answered, "I will be with you. You will strike down all the Midianites, leaving them alive." Gideon replied, "If now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it is really you talking to me. Please do not go until I come back and bring you my offering and set it before you." And the Lord said, "I will wait until you return." Gideon went inside and prepared a young goat. From the ephah of flour he made bread without yeast. Putting the meat in a basket and the broth in a pot, he brought them out, offered them to the oak. The angel of the Lord said to him, "Take the meat and the unleavened bread, place them on this rock, and pour out the broth." And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread. And the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, "Alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face." And the Lord said to him, "Peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die." So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it "The Lord is Peace." To this day, it stands in Ophrah of Esra. Now I'll read verses 36 through 40. Gideon said, "If you save the Lord by my hand, as you promised, Lord, I will place a fleece wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know you will save Israel by my hand, as you said." And that is what happened. Gideon rose early the next day and squeezed the fleece, wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. Gideon said to God, "Do not be angry with me. Let's just make one more request. Allow me one more test of the fleece. And this time make the fleece dry and the ground covered in dew." And then God did so. When the fleece was dry, all the ground was covered in dew. I will now do an evaluation of the rhetorical elements in Judges 6 by looking at the cultural context and the purposes of the passage. To begin, the important two cultural elements mentioned in Judges 6, the people of the day was specifically related to, was the punishing of the Israelites, mentioned at the beginning of the chapter, and the significance of Gideon building an altar like Jacob did. At the beginning of the chapter, it is described that the Israelites were being punished for their turning away from God. He was delivering into the hands of their enemies. The people of this time would have specifically understood what this meant. They would have related to the fact that the Israelites had been taken out of captivity in Egypt and had gone through exile and everything that had built up until this moment. So they would have specifically related to this deep feeling. Additionally, the chapter refers to Jacob building an altar. According to Biddle, the first altar done in Genesis 6 by Jacob establishes a cultic site, revolves around the founder's unexpected encounter with a divine sacrifice. In comparison, Gideon's encounter with God, he also builds an altar, but there are for different reasons. But people at the time would recognize this, that this was a comparison that God was making. Jacob was being inspired to start a movement for God's kingdom, and Gideon is being told to rally against the religion of the people and let people know that God's kingdom will no longer worship other gods, that they want to no longer be punished. Next, I will look at the rhetorical purposes shown in this passage that God uses us to do his work. To begin, the rhetoritor uses people in the society that the society deems unimportant. In an article by Christian, it argues that the Bible uses people who are infinite and faulty to use God's glory, and that this shows that God's glory shines through any circumstances, that God can use us. No one expected Gideon to be special, even himself. In verse 15, he says, "Pardon me, Lord," Gideon replied. "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Mesha, and I am the least of my family." He is discounting himself, but God tells him, "I'm still going to use you." Additionally, we see that God's grace shows through our faults and our fears. When Gideon questions God over and over again, like, "I need a sign, God, please show me a sign," God graciously gives it to him. He understands that his doubting, that Gideon wants to believe God, but he's fearful. And this shows that God wants us to do his glory, but he understands that we're human in the way he made us. To conclude, chapter 6 of Judges shows the rhetorical elements of the context of the times and the purpose of the passage to help understand the passage more. This all culminates in helping us understand the passage in a deeper way. I hope you understand this passage more, and you can even apply it to other Bible verses.